So it's interesting. I'm excited to see how these cards will shake out. Oh God, you died. You're okay. You're okay though. So.
Hold on. Time out
You
here.
fell and you
Time
got
out here. We're going to have to edit. My phone is on 1%, so I got to go inside quick.
Okay. Well, as George does his long walk to the house.
Hold on. We have a big problem here.
Are you locked out of your
Yes.
apartment?
My roommate just locked me out. I got to call him real quick, dude. And I'm on 1%. I don't know what I'm going to do. I got to go.
Okay. What's up, gamers? And welcome to the inaugural episode of your new favorite Pokemon TCG podcast, Squawk and Seize podcast, where every week we're going to be talking about all the things happening in the realm of the Pokemon trading card game, and maybe sometimes adjacent subjects, but we'll cross the bridge when we get there. My name is Kyle. You might know me as Koopa, host of other podcasts, such as Cooped Up, that you might have heard of a couple of times before. Ben, I'm back in the podcast game, and I am bringing one of my very good friends from the Pokemon community, because I want to talk about Pokemon more. I think this is a very important part of my life, and I think at some point in your life when you hit 30, all you want to do is just start podcasts. So I figured, why not start a second one here on Squawk and Seize, and let me bring in the other half of my of my Squawkabilly flock, my good friend, the Pony Bottle Champ himself, Mr. George Fabre. George, good evening. How you doing, buddy?
What up? What's good, bro? I'm so pumped for this. I mean, I've been talking about like when we starting this for how long now, right? Like I've been ready. I've been ready to be put in the game. And there's no one else I'd rather do it with, man. You're the man. Road Dogs, right?
Yes, sir. Road Dogs.
Road Dogs. The Road Dogs of the Squawk and Seas. I mean, we got so much to talk about, dude. Like, I'm ready to dive in when you are. Let's get after it.
Yeah, so we figured we mentioned, we've been kind of in the weeds with this for a while. You know, I am a podcast aficionado. I hosted, my own podcast for like 2.5 years. And then life caught up. I got a little bit busy, but I've really gotten myself into the Pokemon TCG, obviously, and I like talking about it. And I figured, hey, why not bring a different perspective? I feel like there is still some real estate on the market of Pokemon TCG podcasts. If that's something that you're interested in, and it's something we've talked about amongst our group chats. Before we dive into all of the happenings that was the Pokemon World Championships this past weekend, I figured we'll give a little bit of insight on how we got here and how Squawk and Seize was conceived. And it all starts how, like most things in life start. You get added to a group chat that you probably don't want to get added to.
I was pumped to get added to the group chat, first of all. I thought it was a secretive thing, and now everybody's in the group chat. But no, I think the story is awesome. I mean, I wasn't part of it, so I'll let you tell it. But
yeah, so Squawk and Seize as a Harvard University study concept began in the summer of 2023, leading into Yokohama, is when I got added to the group chat. A local friend, known scammer, Hamza Khan, had a group chat of friends that were going to NAIC that year. And, Hamza and I became friends, at our local shop near us in northern New Jersey. And after one night of going out, he's like, hey, man, like, it actually started as a Gardevoir group chat because a bunch of them are all playing Gardevoir going into NAIC that year.
And I was a big Gardevoir player too the whole time,
Yeah.
I
wasn't know who you were yet.
Yeah, I wasn't cool enough yet. Yeah.
Yeah, not yet, no. So, Hamza adds me to this group chat with a bunch of our other local friends, and then it goes from Guardian Imposters to Hamza pitching us the idea of putting Squawkabilly EX in our Gardevoir decks, and then Squawk and Seize was born, and then we got Shiny Squawk, and then our lives changed forever. And then as group chats do, people come, people go. We added you, we added a few more of our friends to the equation as well, and now it's become our main testing group. We each work off of each other and, communicate where we're going in terms of tournaments or just in general nonsense of what we're doing. And the idea came of, hey, what if we started a group chat, and then what if we started a podcast? That sort of was like a stem of our group chat, and then every now and then we'll just have different guys that we're friends with hop in and provide their insight. So,
Well, I
great
just
idea.
think it makes a lot of sense, right? All of our
Yeah,
nonsense and everything, like, you can't just hold it all for us. Everybody's got to hear it.
it's
It's
true.
it's just too good of a content, and I'm hoping everybody appreciates our opinions and our insights. As kind of polarizing as they may be, either for the good or for the bad. Who knows? We could be completely off base with a lot of these things, but I mean, I think that's what makes podcasts in general appetizing.
Yeah.
People want their opinion to be better than someone else's, and some people just want to hear more opinions. And I know for the fact, you know me for a while now. I'm very opinionated, so I'm ready to give my takes and shed some light on some of the crazy, crazy things I've cooked up in the Pokemon TCG myself.
Yeah, I think we can both provide some pretty interesting concepts here because, a lot of the other podcasts, these guys have been in the game much longer than you and I have in terms of a competitive basis. And I think we're just a couple of dudes. I think we're very relatable in that regard. It's that, we don't have any, in terms of just accomplishments as players, neither of us have anything to show for anything, but we're just a couple of nothing. But we're just a couple of guys that like talking about Pokemon. And I think, we can really shed some, shed a different light on the topics of everything at hand.
Yeah. So, I mean, you alluded to it earlier. You said Hamza was our local scammer. I think we had another one come up on the Twitterverse there,
Yeah,
leading into the worlds.
we will talk about him in a second. We'll get to that. But and I'm glad I did wait till after
Yeah.
Worlds to start the podcast because what a World Championships it was. The World Championships concluded at the time of us recording this. It is Tuesday. Whatever you watch this, or if you watch this later this week, the World Championships happened this past weekend in Honolulu, Hawaii. It was some pretty interesting stuff, to say the least, with Fernando Cifuentes from Chile, first Chilean Masters TCG champion ever, winning the tournament with Iron Thorns, a deck that, this is shout out to our friend Omar, who said, he doesn't want to hear anybody say that, they knew this is going to be the call. I knew it the whole time.
Did
I knew
you?
this deck was going to,
Wow,
no,
you're like
no,
a
no.
prophet, dude.
Yeah, so we got a finals match of Iron Thorns, Quad Thorns, versus Roaring Moon EX, which is something that I am still in shock about. Shinosuke Shiokawa from Japan coming in second. So, George, let me just get your overall thoughts on how things shook out for the World Championships. What are you surprised by? What are you not surprised by? How are we feeling now that we're a few days removed from this?
Well, obviously there was a lot of Reggie Drago, right? And everybody saw that coming. Surprised not a lot more Duskull was played in Zard decks. I thought that was very surprising. Um, and towards the list, I mean, how could you ever predict that, right? Like, that's just
Yeah,
unpredictable. But I will give you props, though, Kyle. You said before Shroud of Fables came out and we were like making proxies, you had me print out the Petron EX for the Roaring Moon deck. You called that deck, and to show up in the finals and perform the way that it did. I don't know if your 60 that you had cooked up was similar at all, but I don't know if you had Pokemon catchers in there. I don't know. Did you play that? Did you have that in your
I
proxy
was
list?
I was close. I got the original idea because, like most things I consume in life, I am a sponge of information. So I'm constantly watching, consuming Pokemon TCG content. Andrew Mahone and Tricky Jim is one that I consume a lot of. And he posted a concept of Roaring Moon with Pecharunt. I don't think there was catchers in that list. I think there might have been one or two. But I was also playing a list. I was playing like Town Store with the booster capsules. So that way
Right.
you,
So you're not
you know,
poisoned.
so I wasn't poisoned, yeah. But in retrospect, I don't really think that matters that much, truthfully. Looking at it from the sky above, but yeah, man, when Petrarun got released, I was just like, man, like dark decks are already pretty good. And this really saves you some deck space because you don't have to play switch cards, you don't have to play, item cards to move these big guys out of the active. You just put down a Petrarun. It's a ball searchable switch card, which is
Yeah,
crazy.
and I think that's what makes it able to play the Pokemon catchers a little more freely. Because speaking back to our friend Hamza, he's getting a lot of credit on this first episode of the podcast.
Yeah, a lot of producer
but,
credits.
A lot of producer credits, man. But he convinced me to play Roaring Moon back in, I forget what format that was for Charlotte regionals. And I
That
was
might have been during Paradox Rift.
It might have been. Yeah, I think
Yeah.
you're right. I think it was Paradox Rift. I think it was the first set with the EXs, first regional with the EXs, I believe, or maybe
No,
the
because that was
second.
the Goldengo set. I think that might have been because that was after.
Oh, right,
That would
because
have been way
Scarlet and
after
Violet,
Pittsburgh.
Scarlet and Violet was already out. Yeah, you're right. Yeah, but
Yeah, it was the set right before Ace Specs came out.
It was the first when Ancient and Future,
yes,
it came out. That's when
the
it
Paradox
was.
Pokemon. Yeah,
Yeah. So when that tech came in, that was the first one for that, and everybody was kind of unsure. I think Omar did really well that tournament with Miraidon, right, with Iron Hands.
yes,
I
he
think
got
that
a
was
day.
his first
Top
day two,
64,
right?
top 64. Yeah,
Yeah, top 64. Sorry, that's better than day two. But yeah. So like, I think we already knew that Roaring Moon was a very powerful card and probably a good call for this tournament. But it was also a card that was really not something that was played in meta like locals for the most part. Like we played in a few different local tournaments, and I think I played it the set before, and I think you were playing it as well. But for the Shrouded Fable, we were like, I don't know, I don't think this is really viable because there's so many Reggie Drago, so much of these big V stars still being in play. Even with you know what's the other beast? Oh, Lugia, right? So Lugia
yeah,
also being in the format 280, you're kind of just looking at that and you're like, well, I have to frenzy gouging the whole time to do anything here. And do I really want to be poisoned and frenzy gouging and just leaving this in the active and it might just knock out itself? But in that finals match, you saw time after time, I think the one game that the Roaring Moon player won, he didn't care if he knocked himself out. He's like, I got the prize trade and that's what I'm going
yeah.
for. So I think that's what makes that deck very compelling. But talk about Iron Thorns. I mean, control S deck. I think playing a few weird cards in there, like I didn't think I was going to see Colress, the new Colress card, that much. But obviously that card is super viable to that deck, being able to search out DTE whenever you want, and especially with Lost City, just completely getting rid of any opportunity for Pokemon to come back and play, and then moving that DTE all around the board. Like it was pretty cool to watch Iron Thorns played that way. Definitely not something that I've seen before, and I think overall though, the star of the show was Jesse Parker with the Miraidon deck. To see Miraidon come back to life, I've been playing that deck online. It's gas, man. It moves fast. It hits you hard. It hits you fast, and I'll tell you what, like that might be a play for Baltimore for me. I'm going to look at it, maybe kind of put my own George Febray twang on it, but
Yeah.
that's a front runner for now for sure.
Yeah, no, the Jesse of it all was fantastic. Starting the day 14-0. I think someone on the broadcast said that the only undefeated world champion ever was back in 2004. So Jesse was in some prestige company, and not and with a deck that not a lot of people were factoring for. Miraidon was something that I was, that sort of kind of gained some momentum like the week leading up to the World Championships because, if you looked at how the best decks were going to shake out, Reggie Drago was going to be very popular. I wasn't expecting 25% of the meta share popular, but very popular indeed. So that would have led to probably an uptick in Lugia if you go by the rock, paper, scissors of it all. So if Lugia is going to be popular, Miraidon's going to be popular. I think the only real X factor was how much is Charizard going to show up, and it showed up decently, but given how strong of a start that Jesse had, And he even said on one of his winter interviews that he's like, if I run into a Charizard, it's not something that I'm like really looking forward to.
Right.
Just because of how, you're only really able to do fixed damage, considering that Jesse's list doesn't play the Raichu.
I was just going to say that. And I think not playing the Raichu, like he made a decision, hey, if I run into a Charizard, I'm just going to probably lose that matchup. And I'm okay with that.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Because I've seen a few lists say, like, how you not, or a few Twitter posts like, crazy he's not playing Raichu. But like you said, such a bad matchup at the Zard to begin with. How much more does that really elevate that matchup? It doesn't really do anything for you. You're probably still an auto loss no matter what. So
Yeah. I just feel like given the state of how Jesse constructed his deck, I think Raichu just wouldn't have really fit the equation because you really need EXP share if you're going to play a Pokemon like that that's like very energy intensive. But that being said, considering how strong of a game he started, and given how like the rest of the Charizard field kind of teetered out a little bit, they had like one or two losses. Considering how strong of a start Jesse had, I think he just completely missed that part of the bracket to begin with, which is great for him, and it was a lot of fun to watch. He got second in Pittsburgh to start the season with Miraidon. I don't think he got fifth in Toronto or like one of those other regionals. He got another top 8 somewhere along the way with Miraidon. He is Miraidon's strongest soldier. One of them, in fact.
And one other thing I want to say about it, I wonder a lot of the times when his opponents were going up against him and saw him put down the town store, playing, 2 Iron Hands, they got to think that Heavy Baton's got to be in the deck, right? Didn't play Heavy Baton, only played 2 Forest Seal Stones and a Bravery Charm. And that town store was really just the consistency factor to go search out whatever he needed in a pinch. Because if you watch the games that he was on stream, a lot of the times he was just going to either take the Bravery Charm out to thin before he electrogenerated, take out that extra 4 Seal Stone if you already used it, or waiting to use that 4 Seal Stone for the exact moment that he needed it. So
yeah,
I also think the Luminion call in that deck is huge, and I think Pheasantipity, I think that's something that we didn't talk about at all, but man, I think every deck is playing it now. I think that's a mandatory 1 copy of Pheasantipity in a deck. And I bet half the people playing it don't even know what that Pokemon is. Hands up. I don't know. I don't know who Pheasantipity is.
I have not played a DLC myself, so I am unfamiliar with Pheasantipity's game. Also, there was a rescue board in Jesse's deck too. So
Rescue
also
board,
playing something.
correct.
So when you play Miraidon's got 1 retreat cost, Iron Bundle's got 1 retreat cost. Having that free pivot in and out, especially considering he omitted the Mew EX from his list. I'm lying. There is a Mew in there, so. Again, just having that free pivot having the free pivot without having to commit another bench space to a 2-prizer is pretty huge. So I just think this list is perfectly built together, just the right amount of gusts. And
and I think what he did was, who was the Miraidon player? The 2 brothers. I always forget their names, but he was the first one to play like the 16 energy in one of the regionals, or maybe it was LAIC. Maybe it was LAIC.
Yeah. Let me go back and check, see if I can find it.
And I think he took a lot of in that deck, took a lot of that, and kind of modernized it for this format. I think that's why it did so well. I would love to hear his opinion on that. Like, if he took that deck list, looked at it, and said, "Why did this deck list work so well? And how can I modernize this? Play some of the new cards that are going to give me the edge." Against some of the other new cards that are in the format. Because I think that's where, like, it's a big, challenging, aspect of a new format going into a new tournament. How are the cards going to help the deck that I want to play against new cards in the decks that maybe my matchup isn't so well? Like, how are they going to counter those other good cards? Or maybe there's another card that's been forgotten about. So...
yeah, no, there's definitely a lot to look at here for sure, and I do agree that I think the Pheasantipity definitely is going to be looked at as just like a staple, support Pokemon in sort of the same vein that like Squawk has played in some decks, in the vein that Luminion has played in some decks. Just having that, ball searchable draw 3 is very, very strong.
Or back in old formats,
I think that helps out a lot of
Crobat
decks.
V, Dedenne, GX.
Yeah.
That same thing. Like, it's just, It's got to be in your deck to keep consistent.
Yeah, no, I agree. So good on Jesse. That was awesome. And considering that we're going to continue to, be in this meta for at least another 3 or so weeks, because this is our first regional of the season in Baltimore is going to be played in the same Worlds format. I think we're going to see a lot of this Maridon list in some sort of variation. Also, shout outs to Ryan Harris, who got top 16 in here. He played a slightly different list than Jesse did. He included the Raichu. He plays a Rodom in his list, which is very interesting. He plays 2 copies of the new Academy at Night, a Future Booster Energy Capsule. So, I think the Night Academy is an interesting card because it helps you stack your deck to maybe increase your odds with a Legend Generator. But yeah, Maridon's good, and I think Maridon summers are very much a real thing. And I think it's gonna. We'll talk about it in our next segment after we talk about Worlds. Maridon might be a popular choice for some people going into Worlds.
I agree.
The Reggie Drago of it all. Reggie Drago was on day 1, 20, I think like 25 point something% of the metagame. It converted also very well into day 2. We saw 4 of them into the top 8. So I guess I'm assuming you're studying up on your Reggie Drago matchup. I think a lot of us have to be prepared for this deck to be just as popular, going into Baltimore. I'm sure.
I mean the way that Isaiah Brenner was using Kiram too to set up like, hey, why go 2-2-2 when I could just go 6 all at once? I thought that was pretty impressive, and to have like the knowledge to have to go ahead use that boss's order to put the Teal Mass Ogerpon into the active spot to be able to pull off a play like that. Like they said it on stream. This is probably something that not a lot of people have thought about before, and a line that was pretty unique. And I mean, he's one of the best players out there for a reason, right? Like, if you can go 6 prizes in 2 attacks, you go for it, right? And I think people are going to start playing a lot more Penny, a lot more Turo for that reason, because listen, you can't have these liabilities of damage just being on the board, because especially with the Duskulls and Dustnors out there, these Pokemon can get put away without attack even being announced or all in one turn.
Yeah, we're seeing just with how things are shaking out, the game is very fast right now. So when you have Pokemon like Kyurem that can put you on like a 3-turn clock, pretty much. Obviously, the risk of going for that play is that you leave yourself stuck in the active, but if you leave yourself with enough outs to where I haven't used my V-Star power yet, I still have energy attached to the Ogerpons, and so you give the deck has so many outs, and it was no secret going into the weekend that Reggie Drago was going to be very good, and I'm leaving this weekend feeling the exact same way about it. This deck is a strong choice. It's got V-Star syndrome where if you don't do the bare minimum to get set up, you're kind of spinning your wheels for a few turns to get started. But this deck has enough, I think, firepower to rebound from poor starts. And I think a lot of that has to go with Ogerpon really unlocked this deck, man. Not just for, we're gonna look back at this set later where. Dragapult was one of the big hyped cards going into Twilight Masquerade, but the de facto boss is Ogerpon EX. This deck is everywhere in top 8 and top 16, obviously. I think just being able to accelerate that grass energy is really good, and it's going to continue to be good when, things like the Hydrapple come out, so grass packages are going to continue to be very strong, and Ogerpon, kind of a good card, dare I say.
I mean, if you can accelerate energy and draw, I think that's a good card, right? I think that's something that you want to do.
Yeah.
If you can move energy from your deck, from your hand, from your discard pile, anywhere, that's what you want to do in the Pokemon TCG in 2024, and probably from times to come. And then drawing cards is never bad. And we're going to talk about a little bit more about a card coming back, drawing cards as well. So that reveal was pretty cool, man. I'm psyched to talk about that later on in the show as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So just to round out the top 8 of Worlds here, we talked about Fernando with Iron Thorns. We talked about Sinasuka, Jesse, obviously the splatterings of Reggie Drago, in top 8. But rounding out that, coming in 6th place, James Goring from Australia with what I think was a pretty slept-on choice this weekend in Raging Bolt Ogerpon. Again, talk about decks that really got, jumped into hyperspace, with the addition of Ogerpon. Raging Bolt was a deck that's like nobody really knew how to play this deck. Then you get the introduction of Ogerpon. It's like, wait a second, now I have all this energy on board. I can very easily hit 280 to knock on anything I want. And I think this is just going to keep setting the standard of if you can't set up, turn 2 and attack, you're probably losing real hard. I think this is a real sign that the big basic format is here right now, and then we're in a pretty turbo part of the game right now.
Yeah, I mean, it happens all the time in the game, right? It happened in the Sun and Moon era as well. With some of the tag team cards, it is what it is, right? It is kind of what Pokemon is right now, and I think you're right, Kyle. Like it's going to be something that's not going to go away, but we do have some evolution cards coming out that are going to be pretty powerful, and I think that's going to change a lot too, especially when the new set comes out with all the stellar types as well, which some are, stage 3 Pokemon that seem like they're going to hit pretty hard.
Yeah. So obviously, there is a lot of good to talk about with the World Championships, but there is not without some issues that happened this weekend.
You got to talk about it.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll talk about the bad stuff. I think we'll save the big one for the end. But early in the weekend, a good friend of ours set the tone strongly. Mr. Matthew Tam, local scalper. I just kidding. I don't actually mean that, Matt. I love you. No, so our buddy Matt gotten some heat. Obviously because it's Worlds. There's a Pokemon Center pop up that everybody gets really excited about, and I feel like this point gets regurgitated. Every World cycle or every time there's a Pokemon pop up, in that Pokemon doesn't really regulate how much stuff you can get. So our friend Matt bought well within the limit of what he was able to get at the store, and the people on the internet did not take too lightly to that stuff. So I do want to just touch on this a little bit. We don't got to spend too much time here. But personally, I'm just very disappointed in how people handle this. And I think this is a much bigger issue than just, people buying too much of product to resell it at a higher price. Now, I just want to go out on a record and say that me personally, I don't buy things to resell. When I'm shopping for me, I'm shopping for me. And Matt was very transparent in a post that he made that he did buy a couple things to flip. But you know what? If the man wants to flip a 1 of 1 that you can only get one of in the Pokemon Center, that's his prerogative. That's not mine. And I'm just very disappointed that a good friend of ours who's harmless, who's one of the nicest guys, had to be the martyr for what's a much bigger issue than just people buying too much of something at a pop-up store.
I mean, the first thing I'll say is, like you said, disappointed. I was very disappointed, and I was quick to defend Matt. Being someone that knows Matt, talks to Matt, plays with Matt. If you guys knew this guy in real life, and I say you guys, people on the internet, on Twitter, if you knew this person in real life, you would not think this was anything malicious whatsoever. And secondly, the physical threats to me was just really disappointing. And it's also something that, like, I felt like as a friend, as someone that enjoys being around Matt, like, I had to say something, right? Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. Maybe I took it a little too far. I was answering people. I was getting in the mix, and I just think that, internet bullying is like the biggest thing here. And people were saying things to me, and I was like, all right, you're a clown for that. Like that's crazy to say. It's insane, really, that you're going to bring in like vulgar language on a Pokemon thread. And the one last thing I just want to say, Kyle, like, Matt has like 400 Twitter followers, and that's not a slight against him.
He's got less than that. He had less than 200 Twitter followers. When this whole thing happened.
Exactly, and it's not a slight against him that he's not like popular. The fact of the matter is, I don't think when he posted that, he ever would have imagined a million impressions or viewed and that many comments on that as well. He was
Yeah.
just posting it for his friends to see, that he's getting stuff for his friends at home. Because yeah, we did have like a document with what kind of stuff that we wanted because we knew there was going to be limits.
Mm-hmm.
And on that
Yeah.
that sheet there was like limits of what it was last year, so we could have a good idea. I only asked for a deck box, and a lot of people asked for a deck box. And in that picture, there was a lot of deck boxes. Go figure, right? Everybody wants
Yeah.
a double deck box. I just
Mm-hmm.
don't see where people also got the misconception that the first day when they sold out, that Pokemon being the number one media company in the world wasn't going to replenish everything. They obviously know what they need to sell. They have quotas
Yeah.
every day. And I just think, like it was disturbing to see people, the way that they
Yeah.
were reacting there. Uh, if someone didn't get something, yes, I feel bad. But at the same time, this whole unfair movement that's really going on in the world right now is pretty disappointing to me, right? Because I kind of grew up in
Yeah.
in a time where, hey, listen, if you thought something wasn't fair, right, and you had to play by different rules, like go out and do it, right? And there was every opportunity for people to wake up early and book an earlier time slot, right? If you
Mm-hmm.
really wanted something. So, I don't know. I think sure it's unfortunate. Maybe bad on Pokemon like for not going ahead and setting stricter limits. Maybe they should put out more products. I don't know what the solution is. I'm not a retail merchandiser, but what I will say is um, people thinking it's unfair. Think about the things that you're saying to a person and all the reactions, and then really think what's unfair. Because to me, that's the unfair part
Yeah.
about it all.
Yeah. My only thing is that, like, because everybody was, chiming in here, and then the death threats were not cool. And my only like thing is that if you're gonna go at some guy's throat that you don't know on Twitter, just keep that same energy with everybody else, because everybody else was buying things within the limits as well. And that's what people, again, maybe for the Pokemon Center, they have to adjust the quantities of how much you can buy of something. And you know what? If it's a change that has to happen, it'll happen. I just feel like this point happens every single time there's a Pokemon pop up at every IC, at every Worlds, and people move on and forget about it within days. And I just feel bad that one of our, a guy that is harmless and one of the nicest guys that I know was a martyr for a much bigger consumer
I agree.
problem.
I agree.
So,
I don't think we have to
it
talk about it
stinks.
anymore. I'll say we're pretty
No.
strong points on this one, but yeah, like I'll end it with this. If you want to say something's unfair, put someone's feelings in front first, and really think what's unfair
Mm-hmm.
when you're saying something. You know,
Yep. Yep. Now, I don't know if you saw this other thing that
I
happened
did. I
later in
think I
the
know where you're
day.
going with this. Yeah.
Yeah, so there was a clip that came up on Twitter, and I can't find it because I think it was a Japanese player that posted the original clip. It was at some lower table nonsense where somebody is very clearly palming a card in their discard pile and putting it
Yep.
back into their hand. Um, I am shocked at a couple things. Number one, from reading through the grapevines, I don't know if this person has a history of cheating or not. That's not for me to say. I think that came in then in a tie, which is kind of funny. But I just think it's insane that I don't know if this guy knew he was being filmed or not or whatever. But like to be caught in 4K that bad
Well,
is
I don't know if it was
is
4K. The it was kind of blurry, but
You've been to convention center. You know how that service
yeah,
is.
no. And I think like my biggest thing about cheating at a regional tournament, how's that fun for you? How's that fun?
Yeah.
And I get like some people, that's just who they are, and they're fine with cheating. And if they get the accolades, if no one finds out, they're cool with that. I don't know. Personally, I don't understand that. I would want to win in the most fair way, and maybe I'm just a poor winner. I would want everybody to know that I beat them fair and square, and beat the breaks off of them. Just because I'm better than them, not because I cheated. I don't understand that concept at
Yeah.
all.
Yeah, it's just disappointing. You people work all year to get to secure their world's invites, and for someone to think it's okay to do that, it's again, it's a much bigger problem. So, hey, listen, just let this be a lesson to anybody. If you see something that's suspicious, or if you think your opponent is trying to pull a fast one on you, call a judge. Pay very close attention to what people are doing. While you're doing your
I thought you
turns,
were about to.
don't let anyone try to pull the wool
I
over
thought you
you.
were about to give the subway, the New York City subway like slogan. If you see something suspicious, report the activity.
Yeah, if you see something, say something. No, not to that degree. But also, it's just like if you're cheating if you're cheating at any level, it's come on, like be better
Yeah,
than that.
I agree. I'm with you,
Seriously.
brother.
So, the last big talking point of the weekend,
Whew.
happened during obviously during top 8 of the tournament. So we mentioned before, world champion Fernando Cifuentes with the Iron Thorns came out victorious on Sunday. But if you stopped watching the stream at around, I don't know, like 8:30, 9 o'clock on Saturday, you'd be very confused as to why Fernando was continuing on, because Fernando got paired into one of the best players in North America this past season, Ian Robb. They played on stream. Ian was on Reggie Drago this weekend. Teammate of mine on the Shuffle Squad, again, one of the best players in NA this past season. I think he might have been second in NA this year. But
He
don't
had a
quote
lot
me
of
on
top
that. But I know he's
finishes.
top 3.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was definitely. I think he was definitely top 3 for sure. But Ian won pretty handily on stream against Fernando, and then we found out after the fact was issued an unsportsmanlike conduct match loss, which disqualified him from moving on in the top 4. Obviously, that changes a lot of things. You don't get the guaranteed invite to Worlds next year. I think you lose out on the prizing, you lose out on the Pikachu trophy, the extra promo cards. And Fernando was allowed to continue on, having just lost on stream. And if you go back and watch the clip, Ian very clearly does something that is not great. It's not a good look. We watched the world champion lose on Saturday, George, and it completely changed the trajectory of the tournament. So what are your thoughts sitting on it for a couple of days?
Well,
How you feel?
I was just talking to my roommate about this. I showed him the clip right before we got on here, and I feel bad for Ian, right? Like, emotions were probably high, and that might be just a gesture him and his friends do. Is it right? Is it vulgar? Sure, sure, sure. Yeah, like, I'm with it all, right? I'm fine with the DQ. I feel so bad for him though. Like, what was the difference in money just from top 4 and where he ended up placing?
Oh gosh, I can
I think it was
look it
like
up real
tens of
quick
twenty
actually.
thousands of
So
dollars. Like, that's also a big part of it. And
yeah,
he
let's
filled out
see
paperwork
here.
already for top 4. Match slip was signed. They interviewed him. It was like this whole thing, and then all of a sudden, um, Fernando gets moved into top 4. I felt bad for Jesse too, because he was moving and grooving in the Reggie Drago matchup. I kind of felt bad for the viewers, because an Ian Robb, Jesse Parker matchup there would have been super entertaining. And I feel bad saying that too, because Fernando won the whole thing, and we're like, man, we would have rather watched that. And I think that's kind of just the whole problem with the whole thing, is that we watched the champion lose in the tournament. And I don't know what the answer is. Again, like, I, I, I would love to have like a polarizing opinion on this and not be so wishy washy, but I can see it from both sides, right? If you give Jesse the free
Yeah,
win to go in, and then there's an asterisk next to his undefeated championship if he goes all the way, right? And then that's also not that fun, right? It's just unfortunate that he did that, and I feel so bad for the young guy. Like, that's gotta I wonder how he's doing. I want to just call him up and be like, "You all right,
yeah.
bud?" Like, that must be a tough thing to like mentally go through. Like your tournament's just stopping because of a 2-second hand gesture, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I get
Yeah,
people coming back and defending him, like, it could have been this, it could have been that, it could have been anything. We all know what it was, right? And
yeah.
and Pokemon, as a family, G-rated, GA, audience, you can't do stuff like that. Did he make a huge mistake? Yeah. Kids his age, they make mistakes, right? Like, it happens.
Mhm.
I get it. But man, I think I just feel bad for him more than anything, whether the outcome, because Fernando did go on and win the next 2 games, right? So you
Yeah.
can't say that he doesn't deserve it. And I think that would be super cruel to say that he's not the real world champion too, because he did just beat 2 people in top 4 as well. So I don't know. I don't know if Jesse should have got the automatic win and then he should have still got top 4. I can imagine Pokemon didn't want somebody doing a gesture like that to be in the top 4. It's probably why it took so long for them to make the decision. They probably mulled it over a long time. Because if you're watching the stream live, it's not like it just happened like automatically. They interviewed him and everything.
Yeah.
So it came down from probably the bigwigs, and it was. I gotta imagine a really tough judge call to make at the time.
Yeah, it's a tough situation for everybody all around, and again, I'm sure Ian feels horrible about what he did. Again, I don't know Ian personally. We just are on on the same content team, but it's tough, man. I feel bad for all parties around. Obviously, there is I think in terms of the top 8, the 2 big storylines were Ian, 10 years ago, got second at the World Championships as a junior. And was poised to make the run again. Who's to say he doesn't beat Jesse, and move on to top, to the finals there. And the same thing for Jesse. Had the opportunity to go for the perfect run. And I'm sure he, when you're being told, preparing for one matchup mentally in Reggie Drago, which probably isn't that bad of a matchup for Miraidon, into probably a little bit of a worse matchup, possibly, for Iron Thorns. Jesse also beat Fernando once over the course of the weekend, so I'm sure he was, I'm sure, going to be very diplomatic about who he had to play regardless. I think he was just going to play the game. And, unfortunately, just kind of ran out of gas. And I feel bad for Fernando because he again won the whole thing, and he is very much deserving of being called a world champion. He went out there and he did the work. So I just think it's a tough decision, and if you have to talk to anyone about like, well, where do you give the pass? It's tough because it's, in my opinion, it's I think it's harder to just course correct going forward instead of trying to change what happened in the past, because again, like you said, we all watched Ian win on stream. We all watched Ian get interviewed on stream, and then we saw the graphics say that Ian won on stream. So to go back and have to retroactively change the result like that, it stinks, and it's I think it's an impossible situation for anyone to be put in there. I think it's a lose-lose regardless of what happens. I think there's maybe some softer landing points, but again, I wasn't in those rooms. I don't know how those discussions went. It's just kind of stinks, because what was some really good storylines, for the weekend, unfortunately, just got uprooted at the end there. And I think it's like you said, you feel bad for Ian. There's a $5,000 difference between top 8 and top 4. So
$5,000, okay. Still, that's.
Yeah.
I mean,
it's a significant amount of money.
I mean, would you take $5,000 right now? Someone hand it to you?
Yeah, oh my God, absolutely. Yeah,
you know what I'm saying?
But it's tough stuff, man. Hopefully everybody's gets at peace to it at some point. And we'll all move on, and we'll see what happens. But again,
I know you've never been to Honolulu, Waikiki area, but that's a lot of Musubis, $5,000. A lot of spam you can eat with that, bro. So
wow, I love spam, so sign me up. But yeah, that concludes the World Championships in Hawaii. I think before we get on to our talking about what's coming next in Baltimore, I think we could talk about the announcements that happen at the end of the stream, which Pokemon does every year at the end of the World Championships. There's always some sort of new thing that's introduced at the end of Worlds. When it happened in 2022, we got the introduction of EX cards, back in the Scarlet and Violet era. At Yokohama last year, we got the introduction of the Paradox Pokemon, the Future Ancient mechanic, as well as the hinting return of the Ace-Specs coming back. And this year was no different. We got the reintroduction to Owner's Pokemon, a mechanic that I don't think has been in the Pokemon TCG in like 20 plus years. There are specific trainers Pokemon. We got introduced to 4 examples of it. We got a Lily's Clefairy EX, the Marnie's Grimmsnarl EX, the Ends Reshiram, and the Return of the King Trade Zoroark and Ends Zoroark EX. So, George, just a top-down view. How are you feeling? Are these cards exciting you at all, or where's your excitement level at for the return of, possessive Pokemon?
In our friend group at Squawk and Seas, we like to play our retro formats. So 2010, thinking of like the SP cards, man. Already, I'm pumped for that, right? I didn't play when Trade Zoroark was in the meta, but I already saw comparisons of Mew VMAX, right? And to copy the bench, I mean, it's just going to be a broken deck. Let's be honest. Like, there's no way that it's not going to be heavy played. It's going to be a great mechanic. A little bit different that, you're probably going to have to bench more Zorak. I wonder if Dark Patch is still going to be in the format when that card comes in.
Well, so that's the thing that I'm curious, because I think a lot of people are saying it's look at the Clefairy, for example. It has the Fairy Zone ability, which makes it so that Dragon type Pokemon are weak to Psychic. I think that's a great choice, because Dragon type Pokemon are way too good right now.
OP, yeah.
They've gone unpoliced in the Pokemon TCG. Since they rotated out the Fairy archetype, in Sword and Shield. So I think that's a great choice. I don't think they would print that card without these cards interacting within what we have right now. Because looking back at it in hindsight's 2020, obviously, but when they introduced the Paradox Pokemon, that was to be in the Paradox Rift set, which did intersect with the E-Block. It wasn't until, and then we're just like, well, when are A-Specs coming out? A-Specs didn't come out until Temporal Forces, which was the rotation set. And we did see the hint at the end of this trailer that we're getting a Team Rocket set again, which is awesome. Team Rocket's Return is one of my favorite Pokemon TCG sets. So I think the partners Pokemon, whatever that trademark's going to be, those Pokemon are gonna coexist within what we have right now. That'll probably be like our January set or something like that. And then if we stay on,
sorry not to cut you off there. I just want to say something about the Team Rocket part of it all. I think the Team Rocket is going to be a Pokemon Go type set. If you think about it, I think it's going to be Shadow Pokemon instead of like how the Pokemon when the original Team Rocket came out. I mean, I know I'm old and I played Base Fossil, Rocket, up to Gym Heroes, but they were called Dark Dragonite, Dark Charizard, right? And Team Rocket Returns also
Dark Electro.
Yeah, and then Team Rocket Returns, they were also called Dark Pokemon, right? So I think there's going to be a new mechanic where how Pokemon Go, I think that was the first Radiant Pokemon to come out there, right? With Radiant Shard, Blastoise, and Venusaur, or were they printed before that?
I think that might have been an Astral Radiant.
It might have been Astral Radiant.
That's when those might have came out. Yeah, actually, no. You know what? No, you're right. Pokemon Go is what introduced Radiant Charizard. So you're right. And Venusaur and Blastoise. You're right.
So if you think about how much they're trying to grow the game of Pokemon Go, right? And if you play Pokemon Go at all, Team Rocket is a big part of it, and they have the Shadow Pokemon, right? And I think that's where going to be the new mechanic. And if that's the case, I actually might be a prophet, Kyle. I actually might see the future.
You might be, yeah, but I think whatever that Team Rocket set is, I think that's going to be whatever the rotation set is, because we're going to have that coming out. We still don't know what's happening with Legends ZA, so we're going to get Megas back at some point as well. So I think that by the time those sets come out, I mean, obviously, you're looking way down the line, but I think by the time whatever that Team Rocket set is, the Pokemon, the Sword and Shield block will be gone, and we will have moved on. But I think the partner Pokemon themselves are going to interact with what we have currently. And if that's the case, in terms of what they revealed, exciting stuff. I think the Clefairy is a great card that'll splash into a lot of stuff. The Grimmsnarl is pretty underwhelming, but it really depends on what the other Marnie Pokemon are. It seems like in terms of how they've done this mechanic in the past, they're really leaning into the fact these Pokemon come from a specific engine. If you even look closely at the cards, it says that these Pokemon evolve from those specific blocks of Pokemon. The Ends Zoroark EX evolves from Enzarua. You can't just use the 78 piece Zorua that you might have pulled or whatever. So So I'm waiting to see how they're gonna synergize with each other. And all you had to do is show me trade, and people freaked out because everyone knows Zorark GX. Again, I did not play a lot during the Sun and Moon era. I only really loosely kept ties with what I read online. But Zorark GX is one of the best cards ever printed. It's a draw engine that attacks for, that then at the time attacked for 2 colorless energy. Righteous Beatdown, great name for an attack. And this time we got the reprinting of one of the best sort of gimmicks through the Sword and Shield era, which is, hey, you copy. I love decks that copy the attacks of other Pokemon. That's so cool. So depending on what other Pokemon we get that are in the N archetype, that's going to be interesting. We only saw the Reshiram, which has an attack that does 20 for every damage counter on your active and a 170 flat, which is like, okay, I guess. But we'll see what the other broken cards are going to be in that regard. And it's exciting. These are some fan favorite characters. I think there were some trademarks that might have popped up in the past that, like, I think we're getting some Steven cards, Mr. Steven Stone, if you're fans of the Hoenn region. So it's interesting. I'm excited to see how these cards will shake out. Oh God, you died. You're okay. You're okay though. So.
Hold on. Time out here. Time out here. We're gonna have to edit. My phone is on 1%, so I got to go inside quick.
Okay. Well, I'll probably keep this in regardless. But while we do this, we will. I will explain the next subject of what we got going on here. We're gonna do a little segment here that I'm gonna call that we're calling right now Squawk or Seize, as George does his long walk to the house.
Hold on, we have a big problem here.
Are you locked out of your apartment?
My roommate just locked me out. I gotta call him real quick, dude. And I'm on 1%. I don't know what I'm gonna do. I gotta go.
Okay. All right, guys. So I hope you enjoyed that small intermission in the middle of our episode. George got attacked by a bear. Actually. So
bears, they can smell the. Wait, hold on. It's kid friendly.
They can smell the fear. All right, so we are going to kind of close out our our episode this week. Did you have any other thoughts on the owner's Pokemon? I know I was rambling a bit there. So
no, you touched on the Grimmsnarl, and that card is kind of broken when you think about it, because with the Petron and the Mochi, you can bring it into the active, and then you put 5 energy into play. Whenever you put, like I said earlier, when you put 5 energy into play, or you put any energy into play, it's probably a good card. And then with the Mochi, what does it do? Plus 40 if you're poisoned?
Yes.
So you bring that 180 attack and you bring it to plus 40. I wonder if the plus 30 also gets plus 40 on that. I don't know how that ruling works.
No, because I think that's a spread damage, right?
No, but it says do 30 damage to one of your opponent's bench Pokemon.
I think that's just fixed damage. I think that in my experience with moves like that, I think the damage multiplier is only applied to the active, to the first attack.
Because if you could do 70 to a bench, then that card is super broken.
That's insane. You can't do that stuff. So, but that's besides the point. So it's interesting. I think we'll see. I think they're really leaning into the whole trainers aspect of it all. These aren't just pretty pictures in the corner of the card like they used to be. So I think they're really trying to lean into this mechanic. Do we get an N and a Marnie reprint? That'd be pretty funny. Not that we need it because those cards already exist in the format right now, but I think a Lily reprint would be pretty cool. What is it? It's a draw 4, but it's a draw 8 or something like that. If it's your second turn or something, I forget how that card.
Yeah, something like that. It's kind of like Cynthia's Ambition, but not with knockout. Something similar to that.
It was mostly just a collector card because that card was stupid expensive. So.
Oh yeah, it was a Cosmic Eclipse, right?
Yeah. Great card. Big fan. No notes. I'm excited. Is there a trainer's Pokemon that you would like to see printed? Who's your wish list for a person you'd like to see get a card printed?
I mean, I always like Solgaleo. I can't. Solgaleo. Solgaleo. I can never pronounce it correctly. So like a Lily whatever. You know what I'm saying. If
Yeah.
we saw one of those, I think he or they or it is a sick Pokemon. So to see like Lily's like Cosmonin, Cosmog, and then the two legendaries
Solgaleo,
printed,
Lunala.
Solgaleo and then Lunala. I think those are going to be sick cards. I mean, Lily's like an underrated character. I just think in general in Pokemon. So
I
I know
agree.
it's a fan favorite, but just like as a trainer, those legendaries are really strong. So,
A lot of people don't like Sun and Moon, but I think those games are great. So I'm a
dude,
fan.
that's what got me back in Pokemon Sun and Moon.
Yeah, those games are
I, I took
amazing.
I took a train up to Buffalo and played Ultra Sun the whole entire way, like a 6 hour train ride. So
Heck yeah.
I'm a big fan, big fan.
Yeah. That's a tough one for me too. I would love because I guess we're getting a Team Rocket set, so maybe that will lean into maybe sort of the more classic characters. I think some more of the fan favorite characters are likely to get some love here. Cynthia's Garchomp EX would be pretty cool. I think that'd be fun. Cynthia's a fan favorite. Maybe a Lance's Dragonite would be interesting. Lance is one of my favorite characters of
Oh, you're
Pokemon.
you're
So
saying just any other trainer printed as well?
yeah, or like what's like a trainer's ex Pokemon that would be
Oh,
interesting.
give me a sick Giovanni's Rhydon card. That's what I want.
That'd be sick.
Sick Giovanni's Rhydon. Rhydon is just such a cool Pokemon.
Yeah, and listen, I'm just waiting for the inevitable Rockets Mewtwo EX coming back, and
Oh,
it's gonna be like 2005 again or whatever that year
yeah.
was. So you know, I'm excited. So we'll see what happens. I think as the months go on, we'll get more information on these. Our next set drops in September, but then I think we get the Dragon set later this year to end off our end us off. So it's exciting. So now that brings us into the actual final segment of our show this week, and this is something we're going to workshop a bit, but it's something I wanted to kind of keep us guessing here. We're calling this segment tentatively Squawk or Seize. Obviously, our
Oh,
namesake after the beautiful, our Lord and Savior Squawkabilly EX.
how fitting.
Yeah. So each week, I will ask George a question, and we can alternate. We'll figure it out as we go along. But this week, I'm going to ask George some questions, and he's going to either squawk it, which means he's going to, he's going to keep it. He likes it a lot. He's squawking for it because he really likes it, or he's going to seize it, which he's going to get rid of it. Does not want anything to see with it. It's
Put a
fresh, so he's
stop to it.
draw six. So obviously, our worlds is finished. We are still in this format for one more tournament. The Baltimore Regionals coming up in 3 weeks. At the time of this recording, the second week of September. We will both be in attendance, so I'm sure we're going to have to ramp up our testing a little bit to see, what we are
And by the way,
anticipating.
our Airbnb that I booked today looks kind of sick. I just want to
It
say
does look
that.
pretty sick.
I love Baltimore, the exposed brick and the rooftop vibes. I can't wait to go testing on the rooftop. It's still going to be nice enough in September. All right, sorry, we're getting
It's
off
true.
track. I apologize.
Yeah. Shout out to Baltimore. I'm excited. So,
Yeah.
George, I'm going to read off some decks that are popular right now.
Let's do
You're
it.
going to let me know if it's to play. We're going to help the people as well. If it's to play for Baltimore or not. So if it's to play, you're going to squawk it. If you don't if you say don't play it, you're going to seize it. Now
All
we're
right.
going to avoid some of the generic ones. So I'm going to give you a tough one to start out. Squawk or seize Charizard EX.
Oh, yeah, so tough. Anybody that knows me, I am a Charizard enjoyer, fanatic. I'm not really a big Charizard fan of the Pokemon because I'm not that basic, but I have been playing Charizard for a long time now. I'm going to say that Miraidon is going to be prevalent because everybody's going to play that list online on TCG Live. They're going to say this is broken, and I think you can play a non-Duskull form of Charizard and be effective. So I'm going to squawk it. I'm going to squawk it.
Good choice. Good choice. Let's keep him with the popular mascot Pokemon. A deck that I think maybe came up a little bit short this weekend, but I'll talk about it at the end. Lugia V-Star, squawking or seizing.
You're not going to be happy with this, Kyle, because anybody that knows you are a avid enjoy a truther, Lugia truther.
I am the
Um,
local Lugia bot in our
you
testing
are,
group. So
yeah, and I've been trying to get you off that deck for a long time, but I'm gonna have to seize that one, brother. Like for the same reasons. I think there's gonna be a lot of Maridon. I think that deck is just gonna be too easy to pick up, and people are gonna be like, "This is it. This is my chance with this deck." And if you're weak to lightning, it's probably not a good choice for that tournament in particular. So, gonna have to seize Lugia, unfortunately.
all right, keeping with it. This deck was on the day one meta graphic, and I think shocked a lot of people. Pun intended. Iron Thorns EX squawking your seizing. Was it a fluke? I don't think it was, but was it a fluke?
I don't think it was either. I mean, Path of the Peak was so prevalent as a card in 2023 meta, that a card that does that. But we were talking about like future box being a thing. So I don't know if people are going to play quad thorns per se, but maybe more of a future box builds with iron thorns. I think that you might see iron thorns out there in a different way. So quad thorns, I am going to seize on, but I am still squawking iron thorns as a card in general.
All right, I got two more for you. One of my favorite decks, Chen Pao Excalibur, squawking or seizing. One in the top
Uh,
16.
I mean, I think that deck is bad, man. I don't know. Like, I think I just got to seize that. I don't think there's really too much of explanation there. Um, the good thing that it has going for it that, you know, maybe this makes a comeback, but Dialga V Star is really out of the format completely. But, you know, metal Pokemon, steel Pokemon, whatever you say, not really prevalent. So, it doesn't have a weakness, but the deck is just so clunky, man. Everything's got to go right too often for it. And when it does, it's a broken deck and it's very good. But I'm going to have to seize on this one.
Yep, shout out to Lucas Singh, one of the the four horsemen of Chen Pao. Breaking with that 16th place finish. Very interesting list, by the way. Rocking an Origin Form Palkia in this deck, which I found interesting. So it's a deck near and dear to my heart. But I agree. I think if you're playing an evolving deck, it's probably a little it's tough. I'm actually going to give you two more. Keeping with that same theme, Gardevoir EX, a deck that kind of fell a little bit flat this weekend.
Man, I love me some Guardy. Um, I want to squawk it. I want to squawk it so bad. But if I think Charizard is a good matchup for the tournament because people are going to play Miraidon, I'm going to have to seize Gardevoir then. Because it just doesn't make sense, right? Like, Guardy has a really tough matchup going into Zard. If we think, and going off of what I'm saying consistently here, if I think there's going to be a lot of Miraidon, therefore Zard is a good play, Gardevoir can't be a good play. So, love Guardy, but going to have to seize on that one.
All right, and our last squawk or seize for the weekend, for the episode, Mr. George, Snorlax stall.
Ooh. Um, well, with the same theme here, if I'm bullish on Zard because a lot of Miraidon, and Miraidon's only playing two switch out cards, and that's going to be there pretty big. You kind of have to be bullish on Snorlax stall, right? You have to squawk it then, because if there's not a lot of lost box in the meta, and there's not a lot of decks that are constantly switching in and out. Um, you didn't bring up one other one, Roaring Moon, right? You got to talk about Roaring Moon.
Yeah,
Roaring
I
Moon
guess
has
that's
a
another one too. So
Roaring Moon would have a great matchup into Snorlax stall because of the Petront, but maybe Zard plays Petront then if you feel like there's going to be a lot of Snorlax. I think you got to squawk it. I think you got to Snorlax stall, squawk. Wow, tongue twister there.
not a bad play, yeah. And then as I think it depends on how popular the Roaring Moon of it all is really going to be. because I think stall does really good into a lot of the stuff in the format right now. Just being able to disrupt your board state, mill you out of everything you have. Shout outs to local or Philadelphia local and regional champion this past season, Ryan Antonucci, top 64 with Snorlax stall this weekend. So I don't know. I'm into Roaring Moon. That's a deck that I'm heavily considering playing for Baltimore. So I just think that second place list is like perfect. It's really
Yeah,
it's really
I
good.
might do it with you, man. I might do it with you. I mean, we played it in Charlotte and it was okay. It just happened to be Gardevoir had you know, a big following in that tournament, and Moon wasn't really the call. But that's also when Gardevoir was really good going into Zard. So it's a little bit of a different meta now, though, because Gardevoir is not really good into Zard anymore, which is ironic because usually that they don't change, right?
Yeah,
Usually
yeah,
they don't change, but for getting rid of the Shining Arcana Gardevoir kind of really ruined Guard EX decks to their matchup with Zard, especially playing cards like Jamming Tower out there kind of just ruined them. So
yeah. It's a tough one. So before we end off today, this is another thing I wanted to try out here, and this is our a segment of the show we're calling the Motivate of the Week. So obviously, Squawkabilly EX has the attack Motivate. And we're just, you're the motivational speaker of our little of our little startup that we have. So yeah, I think each week each of us can say something that we're motivating, that we're moving that energy to, like what something that you liked from in Pokemon. Over the last weekends. I guess Worlds obviously is going to be this is the biggest news. So is there what's got you motivated, George? What are we dishing out?
yeah, so I have a team meeting every Tuesday. I'm a sales manager. I'm a sales guy, and that's why you said motivational speak. And I've been watching Ted Lasso a lot lately, right?
Mm.
Um, and I've watched it twice already. This is my third time going. I just love it so much. It's so much mix of emotions, dude. Like I love it. I can't get enough. And I used for one of my quotes recently, Ted Lasso, what he says. You get the harder you try, the luckier you get, right? And I think that goes a lot with Pokemon, right? If you try really hard and you put in the work, put in the testing, really get to know your deck, know your lines, know your matchup, the luckier you're going to get. And I think we saw that in Worlds too, especially when you talk about the Jesse Parker, not to patronize him whatsoever or condescend him in any way that he got lucky, but he did, dodge a lot of the Zard matchups. And that's what was on his list. So, when you know everything else and you work really hard of it, that's why he was able to actually dodge Zard. So you almost can say he got quote unquote lucky, and I think that's pretty motivational right there.
Yeah, no, just kind of bookend it with Jesse's run. I was watching Andrew Mahone's stream yesterday when he was talking about it, and he was like, again, Jesse was locked into this deck apparently like weeks ahead of time. There was no hesitation that he was going to send Maridon, and it paid off for him, man. And he's been one of the best players this season for a reason. Great guy, and then I'm looking forward to seeing how he, what this next year unfolds for him, because he gets an automatic invite. Oh, and by the way, we haven't before last thing we didn't even talk about the world's locations for next year, for the next
Oh
two
yeah,
years. So,
yeah.
in case you guys forgot at the end of the streams, granted, there's some other announcements, Pokemon Go, whatever, Pokemon TCG Pocket, not my market. Moving on. We got the next two cities for Worlds, which is interesting. So, 2025 Worlds will be in beautiful Anaheim, California, and then 2026 we will be in San Francisco. So, you got any outlandish thoughts on that, George?
I just think it's weird they're both in California. Back to back
Yeah,
years in California is a little weird to me.
I do.
Um,
I am also perplexed by that.
I guess like if you think about it, Japan, Hawaii, California, kind of in the center, kind of easier to get to. I think in New York, World Championship would be dope. I think New York City is just one of the most amazing places in the world. Obviously, we're biased here because that'd be very easy for us, right?
Yeah, I
But
don't think there's been an East Coast World since Boston in 2016. I think. I guess maybe if you want to count Nashville, but DC. Never mind, that was in 19. So still, it's been a few years. So since we've been on the
yeah, I
East
guess I
Coast.
guess New York City might just be too expensive as well. I don't know, but San Francisco is super expensive and Hawaii is
Yeah,
super
that's what I'm
expensive.
saying.
I don't
I'm
understand.
not. I'm not sure. I think a lot of it might have to do with just the logistics of how hard it is to get to places. Like getting to New York from Japan is not easy. But again, I think you're gonna have those problems no matter where you are. Like I think from when I was listening to the streams this weekend, Ross and Shay, the two British commentators, they said it took them 20 hours to get to Hawaii. So it's like, well, Shay specifically, Ross came from Japan, so his flight was a little bit shorter, but still, it's like you're gonna run into those logistical problems anywhere. The issue I think with it is that and I think it's because I'm a newer person here. I think I was kind of lulled into this false sense of security that Worlds was going to not be in a U.S. location. 3 out of the last 4, however many years. We had the Yokohama Worlds, we had the London Worlds. A lot of people were anticipating maybe we're going to have Worlds in Europe again, or have it in maybe in another part of the world like Australia. But no, it's. I think it's a little. It's a little bit of like a wet fart that it's again we're just going to Anaheim because I guess if you're not a Disney person, what is there to do in Anaheim? You know what I'm saying? So go to the
I
beach.
wonder. Do you wonder if has anything to do with Lorcana coming up as a big game,
I
being
wouldn't
back
say
in
so. No.
Disney's backyard?
Nah, I just think it's that's how you're gonna get families and stuff to go. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
The sell of going to Hawaii is that oh well it's Hawaii. The sell of going to Japan, it's oh well you're in Japan. The sale of going to Anaheim is that well you're either going to a Ducks game, which is where it's gonna be August, not happening. You're gonna go to an Angels game for $5, which we're gonna do. I'm making sure we go to see.
yes.
We got to go see a baseball game while we're out there. Or
Yeah,
you're
we
gonna
gotta
go
get
to
our
Disney.
invite first, brother.
Oh, we're going. I'm going regardless. Come on, bro. Vacation. Let's go. Oh yeah, we got
Yeah,
to
but
qualify
I want
first.
to earn it. I want to earn it this year, man. I'm on a
You're right.
mission this year. You're on a mission too. We talked about this. We
Yeah.
this is our year.
Yeah.
You know,
We're gonna do our
so
best. So, but that's gonna be it for our inaugural episode of the Squawk and Seas podcast. We'll have some more stuff to talk about, obviously, as the weeks go on. As we start prepping for Baltimore, and we'll start looking at some other stuff that's coming up. Again, it's going to be our little just powwow, talking with our friends, throughout this whole next season. And I'm looking forward to doing it. So, Georgie, let the people know where they can find you.
I'm on Twitter, Pony Bottle Champ. That's really it. I don't stream or anything either, but will see me on Koopa Kyle's stream every once in a while. We're going to be doing some cool things there too. So,
Yeah,
but yeah, this was so much fun, man. Thanks for doing this, and I look forward to doing more of them.
absolutely. And I did get some legwork in on the social media side of things for us. So I did make us a Twitter account today, which
Oh, very cool.
yeah, so there is you guys can check us out at Squawkcast on the X app. So that's where you're gonna be see all the updates for
Oh
what we
yeah.
got going on.
I'm sorry, I
Yeah.
said Twitter. I'm on X at Pony Bottle
It's
Champ.
whatever. I say the same thing. We all know what it is. It's like potato potato.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can check me out on socials at Koopa NJ. I stream every now and I stream 3 times a week playing Pokemon. I am a member of the Shuffle Squad, so once late night starts up again, you guys can check me out there every Wednesday as the mainstay commentator for that. We got a lot of stuff working here, and I got my own content stuff that I'm working on. I'm gonna announce. I'm gonna say it here so that I have to do it. We're gonna be vlogging during Baltimore,
there
so
we go.
we're gonna catch. Everybody loves a tournament vlog experience, as do I. So we're gonna have a good time with it. But yeah, that's gonna be it for us this week's folks. And have yourselves a wonderful night, and we'll catch you in the next episode. Good night, everyone.
Good night.